This week on Africa Weekly, we travel to Zalambesa, an Ethiopian city on the border with Eritrea that was devastated 20 years ago during the war between the two countries, but is now seeing a revival with the opening of borders. And we take you to Mali, to the set of Faso Don, a TV dance show hoping to step up the popularity of traditional Malian dance. But first, a summary of the stories that made the headlines this week. Paul Biya, who has ruled Cameroon with an iron fist since 1982, won a landslide victory on Monday in the country's controversial presidential election. The Constitutional Council, dominated by Biya loyalists, said he had won 71.3% of the ballot in the October 7 poll and that opposition challenger Maurice Kamto was a distant second with 14.2% of the vote. The vote was marred by allegations of widespread fraud, a low turnout and violence in the poll run-up. Comoros President Azali Assoumani visited areas of Anjouan Island that security forces recaptured from rebels after clashes last week in which at least 2 civilians died.
It is time to say to the Comorians, consider yourself lucky. We must thank the good God who gave us this strategy of patience, but I hope that the day will come soon when we will resolve the crisis. That is to say, recover the weapons and find those responsible for these events.
The army regained control of the densely populated Medina on Saturday after armed rebels staged an uprising earlier this week. Soldiers and rebels opposed to Assoumani had fought in the narrow lanes of the Medina quarter in Mutsamudu since October 15th, with at least 3 people killed. Tensions in Comoros have mounted in recent months, with Assoumani's bid to extend term limits through constitutional changes that could see him rule for 11 more years. Boko Haram jihadists hacked 12 farmers to death on Saturday as they worked on their fields in the volatile northeastern Nigerian state of Borno. The jihadists came in 2 trucks and attacked the farmers with machetes near a remote village 17 kilometers outside the state capital Maiduguri, the birthplace of the Boko Haram movement. Boko Haram has stepped up attacks on farmers and loggers in recent years, accusing them of passing information on the group to the military. It was not clear which of the 2 Boko Haram factions was behind the attack. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, rebels killed at least 11 people and abducted 15 others, including 10 children, in a raid on Saturday night near Beni, close to the country's eastern border with Uganda. The attack was thought to have been carried out by members of the Ugandan Allied Democratic Forces. Police recovered the bodies of 11 civilians killed in the town of Matete, north of Beni. In a unanimous vote, Ethiopian lawmakers picked 68-year-old career diplomat Sahle-Work Zewde for the largely ceremonial role of president, becoming Africa's only female head of state. She replaces Mulatu Teshome, who resigned in unclear circumstances. Zewde, who was born in the capital Addis Ababa and attended university in France, has been Ethiopia's ambassador to France, Djibouti, Senegal and the regional bloc, the Intergovernmental Authority on Development. Just prior to her appointment as president, she was the UN's top official at the African Union. Presidential candidate Marc Ravalomanana held a political rally on Saturday in the Madagascan capital Antananarivo ahead of the November presidential election. Among 36 candidates, the leading candidates are Rajaonarimampianina, who came to power in 2014, Marc Ravalomanana, the elected leader from 2002 to 2009, and Andry Rajoelina, who led the 2009 coup and held office until 2014. The following day, Rajoelina held his own rally in the eastern port city of Toamasina, where he promised that if he is elected, more jobs will be created and rice will be made more affordable.
If I'm elected president, rice will come to Tamatave on boats, and it will be sold for half of the current price to Tamatave residents.
43-year-old Tanzanian tycoon Mohamed Dewji, Africa's youngest billionaire, who was kidnapped earlier this month, has been released. Police said they had identified the driver of a vehicle used in the kidnapping and were making progress in their investigation. The NGO African Parks announced on Sunday that 2 of 6 critically endangered black rhinos died of unknown causes, 5 months after being flown from South Africa to Chad in a pioneering project to reintroduce the animals to the country. Rhinos in Chad were wiped out by poaching nearly 50 years ago, and the 6 animals were intended to establish a new population after intensive anti-poaching measures were put in place to protect them.
For 20 years, this border crossing was deserted. Today, it's teeming with buses and trucks queuing to cross. In July, Eritrea and Ethiopia signed a historic peace agreement after 20 years of conflict. Since the border opened, the number of Eritreans fleeing the country's repressive regime has tripled. Nebat Zaria left with her 3 daughters.
I couldn't run away before because I was under 20. You have to be 30 to be able to leave the country, so I had no choice but to wait.
Eritrea has one of the weakest economies in Africa and among its worst records on human rights. The majority of the population is not allowed to leave the country and cannot escape compulsory and indefinite military service. The border town of Zalambesa is attracting those who dream of leaving, but also visitors who want to see more of it.
I'm very surprised. I didn't expect such a level of development. It's very surprising, but I'm happy.
Trucks, people, and goods are traveling in both directions. To the delight of Eritreans, Ethiopian traders come by bus to bring everything they can sell to the market in Sinafe, an Eritrean town 23 kilometers north of the border.
We have everything we didn't have before, from the smallest product to the largest product. Things we didn't have before are coming from Mekele and Adigrat.
Ethiopian traders are embracing the opportunities, but remain skeptical of trade terms. The value of the Eritrean currency, the nafka, is much higher than the Ethiopian birr, reminiscent of trade issues that ignited the 1998 war.
In the Malian capital of Bamako, 8 young dancers from all over the country have been taking part in Faso Don, a 6-week-long dance-based reality program conceived by choreographer and dancer Sekou Keita.
Our dances are so varied. We have a number of ethnic groups. We're very lucky to have that cultural richness. But unfortunately, all of our dancers have one thing in common. If you tell them to perform a dance from the Ivory Coast, which I have nothing against, they know how to do it. If they go to Dakar, they know how to dance the sabar, but they don't know the traditional dances from their own country.
So each contestant has to learn a traditional dance from a region of Mali other than their own. Mohamed Kassage, a contestant from the town of Mopti, used his last performance to show off a style that mixes tradition with more contemporary moves. After reaching the final, his previously doubtful family started to fully support him. He is now more determined than ever to make a career out of dance.
My family give me a lot of support. They are happy and now they see the great value of dance. They are proud of me. They call me every time to congratulate me. They are happy for me. They realize that dance is not a bad thing.
When the grand finale came around, huge crowds showed up to support the contestants.
I came to see the show because I'm a dancer as well. I've been doing it since 2006, mainly hip-hop. My younger sister is in the show as a contestant, so that motivated me to come. And it's the first time I've seen anything like it. Previously, people weren't interested in folk dance, tradition and costumes.
The winner of the first series was Rokia Diallo, a contestant from the city of Sikasso. She won over the jury with her performance of the Takamba, a traditional dance from the north of Mali. It's hoped that this show will help to foster mutual respect in a country that all too often sees conflict between its varied communities.
Ethiopian athlete Feyisa Lilisa returned to Ethiopia after being exiled in the US since the 2016 Rio Olympics. Lilisa had crossed the finish line of the men's marathon with his arms raised to show solidarity against the killing of the Oromo people in his home country. He says now people can express their opinions and condemn the government freely. That's all from us at Africa Weekly. Until next week.